Top 10 most powerful Pontiacs ever produced. Some of the most powerful muscle cars in American history did not just break records, they broke the rules. These were the machines that pushed the limits of engineering, defied corporate restrictions, and in some cases were so good, they had to be hidden away. Today we are uncovering 10 of the rarest and most powerful muscle cars you never knew existed. We are talking about cars that were not built for the showroom floor. They were built to dominate drag strips, crush the competition, and in some cases, scare the automakers themselves. From factory-built drag racers to dealer specials and hidden high-performance prototypes, these vehicles rewrote what was possible for muscle cars. So stick around, because the next 20 minutes will change how you see the golden age of American muscle. And trust me, number 3 on this list will blow your mind. Do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share your favorite in the comments. 1989, Pontiac, 20th Anniversary, Turbo Trans Am. Ah, the 1989 Pontiac 20th Anniversary, Turbo Trans Am. What a machine! The first time I laid eyes on one, it was not at a big car show or an auction. It was on the street, rumbling quietly at a stoplight late one summer night. From a distance, it did not scream for attention. White paint, subtle badging, but anyone who knew what they were looking at understood. This car was special. Beneath that understated exterior sat a 3.8-liter Buick GNX-based turbocharged V6, officially rated at 250 horsepower. But let us be honest, anyone who has driven or raced one of these knows it was closer to 300 horsepower with around 340 pound-feet of torque. What blew me away was the sheer smoothness of its power delivery. No high-revving drama, just a tidal wave of torque that launched it down the road like a rocket. 0 to 60 came up in about 4.6 seconds, and the quarter mile was done in 13.4 seconds at 104 miles per hour. And this was in an era when most performance cars struggled to break 15 seconds in the quarter. The Turbo Trans Am was not just a muscle car, it was Pontiac quietly building a Corvette slayer. Seeing one in action, you realized Pontiac was not about flash here. They built it for those in the know, for the gearheads who appreciated subtlety, speed, and the thrill of a turbocharged underdog. This was a legend hiding in plain sight. ', 1967, Pontiac Firebird 400. The 1967 Pontiac Firebird 400. Now that is a car that made you sit up and take notice the moment it pulled into view. I remember spotting one at a car meet years ago, parked between a sea of Camaros and Mustangs, but somehow it stole the show without even trying. There was something about that aggressive split grille and the subtle bulge of that hood that told you this was not just a pretty pony car. Underneath that hood sat the heart of the beast, a 400 cubic inch V8 pumping out 325 horsepower and a ground-shaking 410 pound-feet of torque. This was not just about numbers, it was about the way that torque hit you. The Firebird 400 could blast from 0 to 60 in about 6.5 seconds and tear through the quarter mile in the low 14-second range. That was serious muscle for its time, especially considering it weighed in around 3,400 pounds. But it was not just quick in a straight line. That Pontiac suspension setup gave it a planted feel that made it more than just a burnout king. The thing that stuck with me most was how it blended style with muscle. The Firebird 400 did not shout. It spoke in a deep, confident rumble. It was Pontiac's way of saying they could take on the best from Ford and Chevy, and do it with class. Seeing one today still gives me goosebumps. (1971) Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 455 HO. The 1971 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 455 HO is a true icon of the muscle car era, a machine that perfectly captured the raw power and bold attitude of Pontiac performance. This was not just another version of the Firebird, it was the ultimate expression of what the second-generation Trans Am was all about. At its heart was the massive 455 cubic inch high output V8, officially rated at 335 horsepower, and a staggering 480 pound-feet of torque. But like many Pontiacs of the time, those numbers were conservative. In reality, this big block was capable of pushing the Firebird deep into the 13-second quarter-mile territory, making it one of the fastest GM muscle cars of its day. What really made the 455 HO stand out was how it delivered that power. With its high flow heads, aggressive camshaft, and 8.4-to-1 compression ratio, it had torque everywhere in the rev range. Drop the hammer, and the Trans Am would launch with authority, its 3,800-pound frame hurtling down the strip like a runaway freight train. The sound of that 455 through the dual exhaust was pure muscle car magic, a deep, throaty roar that let everyone know this was no ordinary Firebird. Beyond its performance, the 1971 Trans Am 455 HO had style in spades. With its shaker hood scoop, bold striping, and aggressive stance, it looked as fast as it was. This was Pontiac at its peak, building a car that did not just look the part, but delivered the goods every time you hit the gas. (1971) Pontiac GTO Judge 455 HO. The 1971 Pontiac GTO Judge 455 HO stands as one of the last true muscle car giants from Detroit's golden age, a car that roared defiance in the face of tightening regulations, rising insurance costs, and the looming end of an era. The first time I saw one in person, it was like staring at a piece of living history. The Judge decal's bold stripes, and that aggressive Endura nose gave it a look that was both brash and beautiful. But the real magic lived under that vented hood. The 455 cubic inch high-output V8 was rated at 335 horsepower and an earth-shaking 480 pound-feet of torque. Like so many Pontiacs of the time, those numbers did not tell the full story. This car had more to give than the factory claimed. On the street, the Judge 455 HO was pure muscle. It could rocket from 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds and tear through the quarter mile in the low 13-second range. That was astonishing for a 3,850-pound machine, and the sound, deep, throaty, and raw, left no doubt about its intentions. The heavy-duty suspension, wide tires, and quick steering made sure it was not just about straight-line speed. The Judge could handle itself when the road started to twist. What makes the 1971 Judge 455 HO truly special is that it was Pontiac's last great stand, a final burst of unfiltered muscle before the age of restrictions set in. It was not just a car, it was a statement, and one that still commands respect today. (1964) Pontiac GTO 389 Tri-Power. The 1964 Pontiac GTO 389. Tri-Power is where it all began, the car that lit the fuse on the muscle car revolution. When Pontiac dropped that 389 cubic inch V8 into a Tempest body and gave it 3 two-barrel carburetors, the game changed forever. Rated at 348 horsepower and 428 pound-feet of torque. This GTO was not just about numbers, it was about attitude. This was a car that let the world know Pontiac was not playing by the old rules anymore. The tri-power setup was not just for show. On the street, when you mashed the throttle, those outer carbs opened up and delivered a rush of fuel and air that slammed you back in the seat. 0 to 60 came up in around 6.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile disappeared in the low 14-second range numbers that made even big-block Chevys nervous. And at around 3,350 pounds, the GTO was light enough to feel nimble while still packing heavyweight punch. But what really made the 1964 GTO 389 Tri-Power legendary was what it stood for. This was not a car that corporate GM wanted to build. It was a car that Pontiac's Maverick engineers snuck through the system, betting that young buyers wanted speed, style, and power above all else. And they were right. The GTO became an icon overnight and set the template for every muscle car that followed. The 389 Tri-Power was not just an engine, it was a revolution under the hood. '69 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am Ram Air 4. The 1969 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am Ram Air 4 is one of those rare machines that blended style, speed, and sheer attitude into a single unforgettable package. The first time I saw one roll into a meet, it did not just pull up, it arrived. That bright white paint with blue stripes, the functional hood, scoops, the subtle badging that only real enthusiasts recognized, it all added up to something special. But the real story was under the hood. The 400 cubic inch Ram Air 4 V8 was rated at 370 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque. And like many Pontiacs of the era, those numbers were just part of the truth. The car felt stronger than the spec sheet suggested. What always amazed me was how the Trans Am delivered its power. That high-compression engine with its free-flowing heads and aggressive cam loved to rev and rewarded the driver with a rush of speed that was pure muscle car magic. It could rip from 0 to 60 in about 6.1 seconds and run the quarter mile in 13.7 seconds, a serious number for the time, especially for a car that tipped the scales at around 3,450 pounds. But beyond the numbers, what made the 1969 Trans Am Ram Air 4 a legend was how it felt. The shaker hood, quivering at idle, the roar of that V8 as it came alive, the way it could handle itself. When the road turned twisty, it all came together in one of Pontiac's most iconic creations. A true 13-second hero from the golden age of Detroit performance. '70 Pontiac GTO Judge Ram Air 4. Ah, the 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge Ram Air 4, what a machine. The first time I saw one up close was at a small-town car show tucked between a row of Chevelles and Chargers. But the moment you caught sight of those bold stripes, the Judge decals, and that aggressive stance, you knew this was something different. And if the looks did not tell you, the sound sure did. Beneath that shaker hood scoop sat the mighty 400 cubic inch Ram Air 4 V8, officially rated at 370 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque. But anyone who has been around these knows it had more bite than Pontiac ever admitted. What amazed me was not just the power, it was the way it came alive. When that big V8 roared to life, it was not just loud, it was commanding. 0 to 60 came up in under 6 seconds, and it could blast the quarter mile in the mid-13-second range. For a car of its size, that was no small feat, and it did it with a swagger only a GTO Judge could pull off. The Judge was not built for those chasing subtlety. It was Pontiac's muscle car masterpiece, a car that shouted its intentions and had the performance to back it up. Seeing one today still gives you chills, a reminder of when Pontiac was not afraid to build legends. (1963) Pontiac Catalina Super Duty. Ah, the 1963 Pontiac Catalina Super Duty. Now that was a car that could stop you in your tracks the first time you saw one. I will never forget spotting one at a nostalgic drag meet, lined up at the tree, that long, sleek body glinting under the lights. It did not have wild graphics or bright paint, just that menacing stance, and a hood that barely contained the monster underneath. And what a monster it was, a 421 cubic inch V8 with dual Carter 4-barrel carbs, officially rated at 405 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. But let's be honest, anyone who saw these cars run knew those numbers were just a polite suggestion. What blew me away was how pure and focused the Catalina Super Duty felt. No frills, no extras, just lightweight aluminum panels, thin glass, and minimal interior trim. Everything about it screamed function over form. When that big V8 came to life and the driver nailed it, the sound was deafening, the launch violent, and the quarter-mile flashed by in the low 12-second range, a time that could humble almost anything on the track back then. The Catalina Super Duty was not just a fast Pontiac, it was a purpose-built legend, a factory hot rod that embodied Pontiac's fearless spirit. Seeing one today is like catching a glimpse of a forgotten hero from the golden age of American horsepower. (1967) Pontiac Catalina 2+2 428HO. The 1967 Pontiac Catalina 2+2 428HO is one of those cars that often flies under the radar. But for those who know, it's a true gem of Pontiac's performance legacy. This was not just a big, comfortable cruiser, it was Pontiac's way of proving that full-size cars could pack serious muscle under the hood. At the heart of the 2+2 was the 428 cubic inch high-output V8, officially rated at 376 horsepower, and a massive 472 pound-feet of torque. That kind of twist meant this big Pontiac could move with surprising authority for its size. The 2+2 was not just about straight-line speed, though it was no slouch there. It could hustle from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6.5 seconds and cover the quarter mile in the mid-14-second range, a remarkable feat for a car tipping the scales at over 4,100 pounds. The combination of brute torque and refined highway manners made it a favorite among those who wanted performance without giving up comfort or style. What set the 2+2 apart was its unique blend of luxury and muscle. With its bucket seats' distinctive trim and subtle badging, it had an upscale, almost understated vibe. But hit the gas, and it transformed into a street brawler that could give smaller muscle cars a serious run for their money. The 1967 Pontiac Catalina 2+2 428HO was Pontiac's big body performance masterpiece, a true sleeper with the heart of a warrior. (2005) Pontiac GTO LS2. The 2005 Pontiac GTO LS2 marked the final chapter in Pontiac's legendary GTO story, and what a send-off it was. When Pontiac brought back the GTO name in the 2000s, there was plenty of debate. Some purists did not like the styling, some missed the old-school rumble. But anyone who got behind the wheel knew the truth. This car was a beast, hiding under clean, understated lines. And in 2005, Pontiac turned up the heat by dropping in the 6.0-liter LS2 V8, the same engine that powered the C6 Corvette. Rated at 400 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, it gave the modern GTO the kind of muscle that could back up its historic badge. What made the 2005 GTO special was not just the raw power it was, how refined and usable that power was. The LS2 delivered effortless acceleration with a 0 to 60 time of about 4.7 seconds and quarter-mile times right around 13 seconds flat. Those numbers meant this GTO could hang with or even outrun many more expensive sports cars of its day. And with a curb weight of about 3,725 pounds, it had a solid planted feel on the road that inspired confidence, whether you were on the highway or carving up back roads. The 2005 GTO LS2 did not scream for attention, with stripes or wings. It let the performance do the talking. It was Pontiac's modern interpretation of what a muscle car should be, fast, powerful, and built for those who appreciate what is under the hood more than what is written on it. A true modern classic that proved the GTO spirit was alive and well. There you have it, 10 of the most powerful Pontiacs ever produced, each one a symbol of American muscle engineering ambition and Pontiac's fearless spirit. From the subtle yet ferocious 1989 Turbo Trans Am to the factory drag legends like the 1963 Catalina Super Duty. These cars were not just built for speed, they were built to leave a mark on history. They remind us of a time when horsepower was king, and Pontiac was not afraid to push boundaries. Which one of these mighty machines is your favorite? Have you ever had the chance to see, hear, or even drive one of these legends? Let us know in the comments below. And if you are as passionate about classic muscle as we are, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters. Together, we will keep the spirit of American muscle alive, one powerful Pontiac at a time.